Hi guys, today we're going to be looking at lesson 3.8, which is writing equations. So the first thing we're going to look at is we have this point, -2, 3, and the slope is 4. So what they want to know is write an equation. Now it does say in point slope form. We're going to completely ignore that. We're going to pretend that it doesn't say that. We want it to write it in slope intercept form because that's what we care about right now. So we're going to write our equation in slope intercept form. And we know that slope intercept form, we've been working with it, is y equals mx plus b. Well, we have a point, so we have an x value and a y value, and then we know that the slope is 4. So we're going to go ahead and plug this in. My slope is 4, so I'm going to plug in for m, I'm going to plug in a 4. My b, I don't know, but I do have an x value and a y value. So my x value is -2. I'm going to plug in a -2 for x, and I have a y value, which is +3. So I'm going to plug that in for y. So let's see what we get. 3 equals 4, and then times -2, because remember that the m and the x are multiplying, plus b. So 4 times -2 gives me -8. And in order to solve that, just like we were seeing in the video before this, to get rid of that -8, we're going to do the opposite. So we're going to go ahead and add 8 to both sides. So b is going to be 11. So am I done? No, because they wanted us to write an equation. I know my y-intercept is 11, and I now know my slope is 4. So all I need to do now is plug it in. So my final answer, my final answer is going to be y is equal to my slope, which in this case is 11. In this case is 4, so it'd be 4x, and then my 11 is positive, so it's plus 11 would be the y-intercept, and that's my equation in slope-intercept form. This is not example 2, I believe this is example 3. I skipped example 2 because I didn't like it. So we're going to go ahead and do, using these 2 points, write the equation. And we're not going to do point slope form, we're going to use slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. So we have 2 points. We learned how to find the slope from 2 points. We're going to do the differences in my y's over the differences in my x. So the difference in my y's, well, my y is 9 and my y is 1. I'm going to find the difference, so 9 minus 1. And now I'm going to find the difference in my x's, so -2 and 8. So -2 minus 8. And I'm going to go ahead and continue solving. 9 minus 1 is 8, and -2 minus 8 is -10. However, I can simplify that. That's going to be -4/5. So I have my slope now. My slope is -4/5. So I'm going to go ahead and plug it in. I'm going to use we found slope. Slope was -4/5. Instead of x, I'm going to choose any point. I can choose whichever point that I like. I'm going to go ahead and choose this first point just because I could have used the other point if I wanted to. So instead of x, I'm going to plug in an 8, and instead of a y, I'm going to plug in a 1. So what would that look like? 1 is equal to -4/5 times 8 plus b. So in order to solve that, I'm going to go ahead and multiply. -8 times -4/5. Well, you could plug that into your calculator, and that gives me -32/5 plus b, which if you actually solve on your calculator, you would get -6.4 plus b is equal to 1. So we learned to do the opposite, so I'm going to go ahead and do the opposite. I'm going to add 6.4 to both sides. So that's going to cancel that side. I'm going to have, that would be 7.4 is my b. So I now have my y-intercept. I now have my slope, which was -4/5. Let's plug everything in together. So y is going to equal my m, which is negative 4/5 x, and then plus 7.4, and that's my final answer. Wait. Sometimes they might leave it as a fraction, but in this case I went ahead and just wrote it as a decimal. Let's take a look at our last example. In our last example, we have a table, and they want us to write an equation from this table. Well, we've already learned that. You could find the difference in my y's over the difference of my x's, or in this example, they did the slope formula. So they did 290 minus 165, and then 10 minus 5, because remember, this is my x and this is my y. So they got a slope of 25. Now, I'm going to use any of these 2 points to go ahead and find my, equation. So I'm going to go ahead and plug it in. Y equals mx plus b. I know the slope is 25, and I'm going to choose any point. I'm going to go ahead and just choose the top one just because it doesn't matter. I could have chosen either one. So I'm going to go ahead and get 165 is equal to 25 times 5 plus b. So you could go ahead and do that on your calculator. 25 times 5 is 125. And to get rid of it, I'm going to do the opposite, since right now it doesn't have a sign in front, but I know it's a positive. So to do the opposite, I'm going to take away 125. And I'm running out of space, so sorry. But you do it to both sides, and so that gives me 40 is equal to b. So now I have my y-intercept, and now I have my slope. So my final equation is y is equal to 25x plus 40. And that's it.